Well, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome today's guest. We have Ulysses Osuna, who's a PR expert and founder of Influencer Press. For the last 7 years, he's helped clients get featured in national and international publications, guest on larger podcasts and TV shows, regularly has speaking opportunities on stages. Welcome, Ulysses.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Really looking forward to delving into this because I think a lot of people focus on, how to grow business from a strategy point of view, but they forget about the PR, the marketing, all these other things that are necessary.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I think especially now, I'm not too sure if you guys are feeling it too, but I'd say, a lack of trust. I heard it somewhere, but there's like a trust recession at the moment. So all the more important, for PR and this to kind of be more prevalent for people, not just building the personal brand, but also for the company.
Yeah, 100%. But I guess before we get into that, for anyone who hasn't come across you before, who is Ulysses? What's your background? How did you end up here today?
Yeah, well, you did a very good job with the intro, so I appreciate that. But I got started about 7 years ago, and the PR stuff kind of landed in my lap. So initially, I was kind of like interning for Neil Patel, who is this big guy in SEO. And because of that, he was consistently writing for places like Forbes and Entrepreneur and Huffington Post and things of that sort. And at the time, I was doing website design, getting paid like pennies, to kind of build designs. And I don't know how familiar people are with like that business, but there's a lot of back and forth with clients. So change the font, change the color code, like all of that stuff. So you don't get paid much. At least I didn't get paid much. And it was a lot of work and back and forth. But somebody ended up telling me that I could make a lot of money doing PR by just being the broker, by just introducing people to writers at these publications that were interested in the stories. And at first I didn't believe him. So he said, all right, give it a shot, try it for a week. And if it doesn't work, then, by all means, continue doing website design. So I gave it a shot. I sold my first one for 2000, and all I had to do was introduce the client to the writer, and my deliverables were done. So
Wow.
and that was the easiest $2,000 I ever made. I didn't have to change anything on the website. I didn't have to do anything else but make the introduction. And then I kind of realized, like, all right, this not only pays well, but people don't have access to people at these publications or speaking opportunities or things like that they want access to. So, what better way to kind of get paid than to be a connector?
Yeah, 100%. So influencer press is like a super connector. You're just bringing in people and farming them out.
Exactly. And at first when we started, it was only for influencers. So at the moment, so during that time, it was really for people that had hundreds of thousands of followers, like had a big following, and that was great. But we transitioned over to not just influencers, but to more so, business owners that are looking to kind of grow their brand and, so on and so forth. Because a lot of the times, which is kind of crazy, but to think that a lot of the influencers don't know how to get inside of the media or don't know how to do a lot of that stuff. So we just kind of helped out with that.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess because you kind of think if they're in the media, then they must know how to be in the media, but I
Right.
guess not.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. They only know their medium, which is like Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is that they're big on. Everything else, it's just like anything else, you don't necessarily know what you don't know.
I love that. Yeah. So do you have a particular sort of niche or do you focus on one particular media or are you across all of them?
We do more of a holistic view, just because from what I've noticed, when we only did like let's say articles, it wouldn't get the client the result that they're looking for, right? Because nobody really just wants the placements. They don't really just want to say as seen on. At the moment, a lot of companies, have that stuff, the as seen on. What they're really looking for is to increase their conversions, to not be chosen last, to have a strong position in the marketplace, to build trust with their, with their prospects. They want to pre-sell clients. So that way people are kind of pre-sold prior to even talking to them. That's where people want to be at because business is already hard. We just, we don't have to make it harder.
Yeah, I love that. And do you think everyone should embrace PR, or do you think it's only for certain people in business?
I think for people that are starting out, I don't think they should, because probably their very first thing that they should focus on is lead generation. People that are starting out normally don't have enough clients. And when you don't have enough clients, you're kind of scrambling all the time. You're doing client work, the operations, the finance portion, all of it. So PR is more of a vitamin versus a painkiller. So it's more of an enhancement to what somebody's already doing.
Ah, okay, yeah, I really like that. So so let's say I came to you and said, make me famous.
Yeah.
What's the kind of, I'm guessing that's what somebody says. Might be completely wrong, but what's the sort of process? What do you do with that person? Do you have to interview them and find out what they're good at? Like, because presumably not everyone's good for video or articles or I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah. Normally we take a look at somebody in their space that they want to kind of emulate. So normally there's already big players in any space that you're in already. Very rarely will there be no one that is a face, it is just companies. So we take a look at, all right, well, what are they currently doing and what's getting them the most results? And then I definitely make sure that they do video, articles, all of it, because, if we alienated any one of those, you could alienate people that like to learn a different way. So I'll give you an example. I'm not a video person, so I won't watch videos on YouTube. I won't watch VSLs. I won't watch any of that stuff. In fact, when people voice message me, I get it transcribed. So I will read through everything, but I won't watch anything. So I won't even sit through a webinar, right? But and if the only way I could get to know about a person is by watching stuff, I probably would never do it because I just don't want to spend the time doing so. But somebody else, might enjoy watching a podcast, might enjoy watching a TV interview or things like that. And at the moment, and I did the research not too long ago, but 80% of internet consumption is video. So we for sure want to make sure that video is included, but there's a good 20% that like to learn it a different way. So you definitely don't want to alienate, those type of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have this sort of like blanket approach to get as many eyeballs as possible, or are you super specific depending on who they want to talk to?
I would say we have structures in place for specific goals. So if somebody has a book launch, then we have a specific structure in place that has already worked before that kind of creates raving fans that we will utilize and tailor and tweak a bit, but we don't deviate much from it because it's already kind of proven to work.
Mhm.
But if somebody else is looking to build their personal brand, then it's a little bit different. If somebody else is looking to promote a product or a service, then it's different. But so we don't deviate away from the structure towards that goal, but we definitely make tweaks and tailor things to ensure that it's relevant to what they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there one medium in your experience that is better for generating leads or for getting eyeballs on you?
Yes. So I would say to generate lead flow or sales, podcasts are probably the best. I have clients that, they'll do 4 podcasts and they'll generate, 6 figures off of the podcast. So it's that brings in the most eyeballs and the people that are probably within the target audience, especially if you get on the right ones. So that is a big revenue driver. Another revenue driver is speaking on stage. The issue is most people try to get paid first to speak on the stage. The problem with that is you're competing against everybody else that won't take a fee to go speak on that stage, and they'll speak for free that are probably within your same space. So what we promote instead is for them to get paid on the back end. So after someone speaks on stage, normally if you do a good job, then people are interested in talking to you, maybe wanting to hire you because you just built trust for an hour. And if you do that, you can, make sales. So initially, when I was first speaking, I made about like 20 grand per stage. So at the time, I was selling like a $10,000 thing, and I would sell 2. Recently, it's increased. You just get better. So like my last event that I did, I made 65 grand. So each event, as long as I don't be hard about it and try to like get them to pay me to go, can be a revenue producing channel.
And so even though, so you don't encourage people necessarily to pitch from stage, but it's just that being the authority, people then gravitate to you and later there's something.
Yes. Now, you definitely can pitch from stage if they allow it. But most of the time, like they don't want a pitch fest at their stage, especially if they have multiple speakers. So the goal is to like pitch without necessarily pitching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To build trust, I guess, in your audience.
Yeah,
Yeah. So then they want to engage with you, I guess.
pretty much.
Yeah. What's the most amount of people you've ever spoken to?
Um, that's a good question. Probably the last one that I did, it was last year. I spoke at Chris and Jen's mastermind, and man, I don't quote me on this, but I think they had like about 1,000 people at the event. So
Nice.
yeah,
And I guess because you're controlling the press to a degree, you're kind of controlling the narrative.
yeah,
Uh, does it ever backfire sometimes? Like, do you ever put somebody out there and they get trolled and things like that?
yeah. Yeah, 100%. We've definitely had our lessons with that, like I would say about 4 or 5 years ago. Actually, I don't even know how long ago. It might have been 6 years ago, but we didn't vet someone properly. And it was a stupid story. I don't know why I didn't think anything otherwise, but the story was that this 21-year-old kid sold the company for $100 million. And, I couldn't find anything online that like there was no mention of his company, nothing. But at the time, he sold me on the idea that he was going to buy out my business for $3 million. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. And we ended up getting him published everywhere: Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur, like the big stuff. We even got him published next to people like Ryan Blair, who sold his company for like $700 million. Gerard Adams, who sold his company for $50 million, like all of that. And even after the articles went out, that 21-year-old kid was texting Gerard Adams so that way they can do some sort of collaboration. And it was all fake. And what ended up happening is I ended up losing a lot of connections and a lot of friends because I just didn't do my due diligence. And a lot of the articles that, we got him had to come down. And some of the people that wrote there ended up losing their column. So it was it's definitely something that I have to pay attention to. And then there's been other times where we promoted somebody that, looks good, is like, vetted, but then something happens in their business where they have to shut down and then they have a ton of, angry clients. So it's not necessarily a tough thing to balance because most of the time we get it right, but there's a
Mhm.
few times when we don't.
So do you have like a team of people that are kind of vetting people as they come through?
What we'll do is we'll do audits. So prior to somebody becoming a client, we'll audit everything that's on their social media because what we stay away from now is big claims. So the press that we do is not, I don't know how familiar everybody is with when they see press, but right now I think there's a lot of like lifestyle PR going out where it's like, I just bought, this Lamborghini, or I just retired my parents, or whatever that type of stuff is. That seems very lifestyle guru-ish. So we don't
Yeah.
do any press like that anymore. And that's one of the ways to eliminate a lot of that, a lot of the claims, right? So now what we focus on is, okay, what do people need to believe in before they need to move forward? Well, number one, they need to believe in the founder. They need to believe in the methodology that it's going to work. And then they need to believe in themselves. So we'll write articles based off of that. And for that, it's very hard to get wrong because
Mhm.
we're not making any exaggerating claims that can bite us in the ass later.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You're taking facts and then injecting sort of something into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where should you mentioned before, this isn't for everyone, it's perhaps not for startups scrambling for clients, and it's for someone a bit further down the line. But for people maybe just before they're coming up to the place where they might work with you, what kind of advice have you got for people if they're putting themselves out on social media? Is there any hints or tips you could give them to kind of help them?
Yeah, I would say that positioning will close more deals than objection handling ever will. So, one of the best ways to kind of win is to prepare to win. So, positioning will do that. If you don't have your positioning correct, it doesn't matter if you get more eyeballs. Your positioning is not, down correctly. A lot of people think it's actually cliche, right? All the stuff that people talk about in the beginning to get right, like the ideal avatar, your positioning, things like that. People think that doesn't matter that much. It actually matters the most because it's the deciding factor between if somebody works with you or they don't. And That's literally all that I'm not gonna say all that you need because business is, multiple parts. Um, but you make it that much harder if you don't know who you're speaking to, you don't know the pain that you're solving, and you're not uniquely positioned to be the one person that can solve that problem. I think the issue now is everybody's trying to become the number one expert in their field, which is highly unrealistic because if everybody was the number one expert in their field, nobody really would be. And
Yeah.
because of that, the thing that you should be is more so the power of one, where you can solve the right person's pains, the right person's problems. They only see you as the right partner and nobody else. That connection you want. That's the thing that's going to, move the needle. And then once you put fuel on that and you get media with that, then you'll blow up. But yeah, the other way around, you won't.
I love that. Yeah, that was really powerful what you said. Positioning was better than any object. What was it again? That was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the positioning will close more deals than objection handling ever will.
I love that.
Yeah.
That should be your slogan. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
Um, so we're encouraging people then to solve problems and to find their ideal client. And do you encourage people to be themselves, to be authentic as well, or do you kind of coach people on how to be something they're not, or how to play up to
Yeah.
the press?
I would say the only time we teach people to be a little bit different would be with TV because they can be themselves. But if they only have 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes on TV and they're themselves and they talk about things that don't matter, then they're just going to waste that opportunity. So we definitely will coach them to ensure that they're good at, providing snippets of what they do. Somebody that does this really well is he was a presidential candidate. His name was Vivek Ramaswamy. He does phenomenal when he's on TV. Like he knows his talking points, he can get it out immediately, and you understand it really well. The thing with with no, I wouldn't say normal people, but people that are not trained with TV, they don't know how to communicate with TV, and because of that, they just waste their TV spot. So yeah, that's the only time that we would train them to be something different.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, I guess. Well, if you're on the TV, then you're kind of acting anyway. You have that opportunity to to put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
But other than that, I guess it's be authentically you. We've heard that a lot, haven't we, over the last few years? Authenticity, it's kind of a word that everyone's familiar with, but I think it's important because people buy from people at the end of the day.
Yep. Yep. No, 100%. And I think there's a craving for that right now. There's a craving for intimacy, for authenticity, because a lot of people have felt like, uh, yeah, they just. I think a lot of people feel like the perfection stuff is not realistic, and because of that, they can't trust something that's not realistic.
Yeah, yeah. Is you hear it all the time, don't you? And people only put the best bits on social media. So people are looking at people, oh my God, their life's so much better than mine. And it's like, well, it's
Yeah.
not. You've just seen 5 photographs over a 7-day period. They had ups and downs as well.
Yep.
They weren't always on holiday or always out for dinner.
Agreed. Agreed. And it's more common than not, actually. So more people fail quite every day, practically, especially
Yeah,
business owners.
yeah. I always say, if any business owner says, life is good every single day, then they can't have any employees or clients.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
things happen. That's just part of it. I think the more open you are to accepting that, the easier it becomes.
Yep. Agreed.
Mm. So you mentioned that was interesting, kind of, people crave that authenticity and that they want that realism. Do you think that's going to be the focus for press and social and media for the next sort of few years, or can you see anything else coming through that's going to take over? Kind of, is there another craze or something that's going to take over sort of the media?
I would say I think the craving part is probably more so just on social. I think for the media portion, I still would prefer people are professional and have that front versus, completely let go and free. I would say it depends on the medium for sure. But in in my space right now, at least for what's working, I still would like for people to be for people to have a level of professionalism and not necessarily just be free and real all the time, because there's also a downside to being just completely real all the time. And a lot of people have bad traits. There's a lot of times that people complain a lot, and if you start complaining a lot, then nobody wants to hire somebody that's complaining all the time. There's a we're human first, which means we're going to make mistakes. And if you put all your mistakes and all your wins out there, I don't think that's going to serve you the best, right? Because some things should be handled behind closed doors. Things happen, you fix it, and then you continue on forward. But if you spill your beans all the time, which I've seen people do, you kind of tarnish your own reputation that way. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of smiling inside because we're in the middle of closing a deal at the moment, another acquisition, and there's a broker involved. This broker last night, I think he'd had too much to drink, and he sent an email full of swearing, expletives, all sorts of things, because this has taken about 2 weeks longer than he wanted it to. And I think he's wanting this money as
Yeah.
it's the most unprofessional thing I've ever seen in my life. It's like it's bordering on criminal. We're like, we could call the police.
Yep.
Um, Crazy. And of course, if he hadn't have done that and done a good job, we would go back to this guy and we do more deals together. Everybody wins. But now I don't even want to pay his bill.
Agreed. Yeah.
Great.
Yep. And I think and that kind of brings up, like, that's why I think people are taking that to heart too much, where it's like, I, and I don't feel like because I'm still young, I'd say, but like, I feel like back in the day, when I say back in the day, it wasn't even that long ago, people were just a little bit more professional than they are now, you know? Yeah. I used to say, personality beats professionalism. I feel like I'm going back on that now. Yeah,
Professionalism is super important, isn't it? The way you interact with the world around you, I guess what that is.
agreed. Yep.
Do you find because a lot of the people listening to this are in the M&A space, they're looking to acquire businesses, scale companies, and ultimately exit. Have you been involved in that side of business as well? Have people wanted to elevate themselves to acquire or exit?
Yes. And most of the time so we have done it for a few clients prior, and really all that we're doing inside of the, articles and things like that is basically the same that we would do for any other, service-based company. So many of the times when you're an established person in a field, you just have to go through less hoops. It doesn't mean you don't have to do the due diligence anymore on the deal or anything like that. You still have to do that stuff. But you become more of like a preferred partner. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that we've done is very similar. I mean, we've made introductions to, you know, actually, I guess I can give you the latest one. So are you familiar with Michael Byers?
No.
No? Okay. He's done a lot of acquisitions. Actually, what's their website? I don't know exactly what their website name is, but it has something to do with like acquisition something.
Okay.
So, one of the things that we'll do is like, all right, if you want to be one of the big people in the space, which he is most of the time the big people in the space, they all hang around each other. So what should we do is like, right, well, we should inject you into that same group. So that way you can get to the same people, get better deals, do all that stuff. So like a month ago, we introduced him to Ty Lopez and like his fulfillment team. And he ended up doing a presentation to Ty Lopez's students. Ty was on there, all that stuff. So even though Ty Lopez's students are not going to buy from him, what this does is it gives him an in to somebody big that has already done acquisitions that we know of. I don't know how, successful they've been with like bodybuilding.com and things like that Ty has purchased, but it still gives him an in to a bigger sphere, where he can have access to better deals or whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. So that positioning again, isn't it? It's kind of building your own brand by working with these other great people.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. So what about so I was looking at some of the stuff you've done before and something called pre-influence came up
Yeah.
a couple of times. How would you describe that? How does that fit in?
So it's basically a uniquely tailored version of Robert Cialdini's persuasion. So Robert Cialdini is like a master when it comes to influence. And he's just done a lot of studies before where, if you listen to certain music, while you're at a restaurant, like you'll eat more. Like there's a ton of things that just subtly influence people's behavior. And what that does is you just kind of influence purchasing behavior, and everybody wants to influence purchasing behavior, right? So pre-influence is essentially the same thing, but utilizing that within the media. So it's always, people are always at different stages. So to give a quick example, if somebody doesn't know a person, they probably will not dive into a 45-minute podcast like this to get to know them. They just won't. They don't care about that person enough. However, prior to knowing that person, they might watch a 5 to 7 minute TV spot. So because of that, it can be your mini like VSL, which is video sales letter. And if you do it correctly, it can build authority because you're on TV. It can answer a lot of questions, and it can get somebody interested to then want to, schedule a call with you. So it's using the mediums in the right way to get your desired result. Many people don't do anything to kind of pre-sell clients before they even speak with them. So because of that, you're always starting from a negative. Imagine starting a sales conversation where they don't know you. They have to be educated on what you do, why it's even beneficial for them. You're starting off bad. But if the person hops on the call and they already know who you are because they've heard great things about you, they've seen some of your stuff on TV, they know the methodology and like they understand the pain. Well, now that call is going to be from a place of authority. And when you come from a place of authority, then it's just a little bit easier, right? And then it's just all about determining if they're the right fit and if the finances work out. But you don't have to struggle with lack of need or lack of urgency, because those two get handled prior. And most of the objections that come up in sales is lack of lead, lack of urgency, lack of trust, or lack of finances. So that's normally what happens, and we want to cover as many of those as possible before they ever hop on the call, because then it becomes easier.
Love that, yeah. And do you suggest that people, because I've read a lot about the zero moment of truth, the Google research, where they have, 11 different touch points, 5 different mediums. So do you intentionally kind of move people around media as well to build that trust?
Give me an example of, yeah.
So this piece of research said that, pre-internet, the zero moment of truth, or the moment that somebody felt that they trusted you enough to buy your thing, was 3 on average. When
Yeah,
it came along, that number's gone up and up and up, depending on how expensive your thing is. And it
yeah,
was somewhere between 11 and 28, I think, or touch points. But what I found fascinating was it had to be on at least 5 or 4.7 different mediums. So, it's 4 different platforms or medias, and you build this trust by being seen in more than one place.
yep, yeah, exactly it. And that does happen. Because, if we look at the current market right now, there's hardly any businesses or business owners that don't have testimonials. Mostly everybody and their brother's mom and, whoever, if they have a business, they have testimonials. So testimonials, even, back then they used to work amazingly. Right now they don't work nearly the same. They still work, but they don't work nearly the same because it's no longer the deciding factor whether somebody moves forward. So because of that, you definitely have to use, different mediums of them seeing you, the different ways that they interact with your business for them to kind of make a decision. And things like testimonials, things like putting website names on your or publication names on your website just does not work anymore, at least not how it used to. So because of that, yeah, that's 100% correct.
Yeah, I love that, and it's true because lots of websites now you see the same logos on it, entrepreneurs and Forbes
Yeah,
and everything. Um, so yeah, building that social proof is super important by seeing in different places. I think what's interesting about testimonials is I think that could become crucial in the future with AI. Because if you've got an AI assistant or a bot and you say, book me an appointment at the local barbers and you're
yeah,
out of town, how's it going to choose? It's probably going to choose the one with the highest ratings or the ones with the most testimonials. And
that's
I think
true.
going back, it'll be an automatic thing. So yeah, and maybe just something for the future. Little thought that's been in my head for a while.
No, that's true. I didn't think about that actually. The only thing that I've thought about in terms of like the AI is right now there's like generative AI. So it's like if you look something up on Google, AI will pop something out first, and then you'll see your Google results. So we've been trying to see how we can get into that little, that little snippet prior. But that's true. We should also, that's a good note for me to have, to kind of work towards.
Yeah, who knows? It might happen, it might not, but it kind of makes sense, I think.
Yeah, it does. It does to me.
That's so much information that the AI will have to use, and that's one data point, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, we've sort of jumped around a little bit, but I guess, at the start you said someone comes to you, you audit them, you find out what their goals are. What's the process then to take them through? Is it a month-long thing? Is it a year, or is it different depending on their goal?
So if, sometimes people just want a few things, like a few logos or whatever. So that won't take any longer than like 3-4 weeks, but they're not going to get the results. They just kind of want the deliverables. Somebody that wants the results at minimum, it's going to take like 3 months, just because nothing happens overnight, especially nothing permanent, will happen overnight. We like to work with clients, at least bigger clients for the year. But on average, somebody will stay on for 3 to 6 months for a campaign. And then, we'll kind of run that, see how well it did. And I mean, normally it goes pretty well. So there's that.
Yeah. And do people pay? Is it a retain? If people are watching and they're thinking, I've got to get in touch with Ulysses. Is it
Yeah.
a retainer? Is it per project? How does it work?
It's normally per project unless you're doing a retainer for 6 months and longer. So if you're not doing a retainer model, then you're paying for a package and you're essentially paying for certain deliverables and things of that sort. But if you're looking to just be in the media every single month, kind of without fail, that's more of a retainer thing. So it'll depend. But normally the retainers are longer. Normally the packages are shorter and they're just more kind of condensed.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, you've obviously been growing your brand and your business now for 7 years, I think you said.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you wish you'd known 7 years ago that you know now? How do you think you could have grown faster or bigger or better?
I would say
What was
business model.
business
Um,
model?
oh yeah, 100%. That's probably the biggest mistake I've made. Is having the wrong business model. Like for a long time, people were just paying me 10 grand and to get some stuff done. And like we would finish it and then be done with it. We wouldn't participate in any upside. There would be the LTV of that client was 10 grand. Like there was nothing in place. So it was always get new clients, fulfill, get new clients, fulfill, get new clients, fulfill. However, there's other companies, people that I look up to, like Chris and Jen, um, and they sold their company like maybe 2 years ago for like 8 figures, and that's because they had the right business model, they had the right packages, they had the right solutions, they kept clients on for a long time. Um, that matters a lot with business. The business model you choose, like for example, somebody that does email marketing, if you were to hire one person that charges 2,500 a month, that's great, and they're going to make good money, but they have to get a lot of clients in order to make good money. But if another email marketing person charges 2,500 plus a percentage of revenue share, well, now they're participating in the upside. Now they make a lot more money per client, and now they're getting paid per their result. And I mean, that person's going to win every day compared to the other person that's just charging monthly.
Yeah, I love that. So for everyone who's watching then, and you take some time to consider the business model that you've got. Are you winning once, or do you have several bites at the cherry, or whatever the saying is?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. And for is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want everyone to know about you, about influencer press? Where are you going next?
Yeah, I would say that's a good question. um, well, I guess nothing that we haven't covered, but where I'm going next is relatively the same. So we still service I mean, I feel like we have our bread and butter, down of like who we can help and things like that. So just more of the same people. And they're really on two opposite spectrums. So it's really like the big level person, like the, Ed Milet's, the Brandon Dawson's, the Gary Brecca's, or it's somebody that already has a successful business and like they have the testimonials, they have all the proof, and they're just looking to amplify that. If it's not necessarily those types of people, there's other PR agencies that can, probably better fit.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. And if people are watching and they want to reach out to you, where's the best place to contact you?
You can go to my Instagram at Ulysses and I'll get back to you there.
Wonderful, Ulysses. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I shall let you crack on with your day. Take care.
Thank you.